Arnaud de Bresson, I would like to start with you because you're managing Paris EUROPLACE, which is an organization in charge of developing and promoting the Paris financial marketplace and the French financial industry internationally. So what in the long-term strategy in fintech and in green finance, green and sustainable finance, more precisely for Paris financial ecosystem to become the financial center of future Europe?
Well, thank you very much, Marion, for your invitation. Thank you to the Singapore Fintech Forum, and thank you to the Ambassador of Singapore to be here today, and to Cédric O, our Minister of New Technologies. Paris EUROPLACE is the organization in charge to develop and promote the Paris International Financial Center. And we are today in a very new context. First, because of the COVID crisis, but also with what is happening on European level. And I mentioned the Brexit, which is not a good news. We didn't consider the Brexit as a good news because we are European convinced, but in fact, which gives new opportunities in the short term to Paris to grow quicker and to be the leading financial center in the European Union in the coming years. And I quote a British agency, New Financial, which was giving some new data a few days ago. As from now, Paris is the leading financial center in the EU 27 with 24% of market share, ahead of Germany with 20%. And Paris has major assets in equity markets, corporate bonds, asset management industry, the double of Germany, as well as the new developments in three key areas. First, sustainable finance, which is a high priority for us in terms of the strategy of Paris for the future. Paris is an international leader in green finance, in the green bonds issuings, as well as the development of new investment initiatives, and BPI is contributing. Second, financial innovation and the fintech. We have created here the financial services cluster dedicated to accompany and develop the fintech, and we bring the French fintech abroad on international fields. We were in Singapore a few months ago, in last January, when it was still possible to travel, and we will accelerate, as Minister Cédric has said. And last but not least, the infrastructure financing. These are the three key areas to consolidate the position of Paris as a financial center of the future in the European Union.
Thank you, Arnaud. Arnaud, the other ones. I have two Arnaud today, I'm so lucky. Arnaud, you're the executive director of Bpifrance, the French public bank that has become since 2013 probably the one-stop shop for entrepreneurs in France. Can you tell us about the financial instruments for startup and fintech supported by Bpifrance? First, to become the future financial center in Europe, but more precisely this year, to survive the pandemic and grow faster in the post-COVID area.
Sure. I think regarding startups and fintech startups specifically, the point was not surviving the pandemic. The point was thriving on the pandemic. Because basically, if you look at the startup ecosystem for most companies, they have been doing very well. And the crisis has operated as an acceleration, not as a major difficulty for most digital startups. So we had this twofold view, which was that on the one side, we wanted to make sure and to prevent any trouble, because obviously it was very difficult times for everyone. At the same time, we had companies accelerating at a very rapid pace, even more rapid than in the past. So we had to do both, helping them to grow in a very difficult context and make sure that no one is left apart on the side of the road, if I may say. So this is what we have done. This is what we have done with the French government, devising new schemes to make sure that everyone is thriving or at least surviving, and in the digital field again, most of the time thriving during these very specific years. Regarding Bpifrance, we have always been operating, as you mentioned, some sort of a one-stop shop for startups. So we extend a lot of grants and subsidies on the basis of 1 to 2 billion per year to the French startups. We have specific loan schemes, we have investment schemes, and we also operate as one of the key limited partners for the French venture funds. And we've been doing so for the past 10 years, and obviously we have continued in 2020 and actually accelerated in 2020. Again, designing and extending new schemes for all French companies, with some of them very dedicated to the startup situations. A lot of equity, let's say, bridge to equity loans, which were very specific to this year. Actually not so useful because quite interestingly, the venture ecosystem has been working quite well in 2020. The venture funds have continued to raise a lot of money and have continued to invest a lot in the French ecosystem. So the financial difficulties on this side of the economy were not so big, in fact. Very interesting.
And regarding the action of Bpifrance itself with fintech, because I think Bpifrance also transformed itself to use the French fintech to deliver the solutions to help the SMBs. Well, that's a surprising model. So can you tell us about this integration? Are you testing yourself the fintech solution before promoting them?
So that's the other side of the coin, because as the startup ecosystem was doing rather fine, the rest of the economy went through a massive shock. As Minister Cédrico mentioned, we had to go to lockdown basically overnight, creating huge difficulties for an incredible number of companies. So we set up to help these companies, and we were lucky enough to be chosen to extend the guarantees on the state-guaranteed loan programs. So we had basically, if you look at it from now, in 3 months, we had to extend around 120 billion euros of loans to 650,000 companies over 3 months of time. This is not what we are dimensioned to do on a regular basis. To give you an idea, on a regular basis, we extend around 80,000 guarantees per year. So we had to do 10 times more in 4 times less of time. So to do this, we chose to partner with a lot of French startups. Some of them we knew before, some of them we didn't know before, but one very important part is that we had started this strategy of open banking and fintech partnerships many years before, and that allowed us to accelerate and to be operational, if you will. So to be live at scale based on a partnership with around 20 startups within 15 days. So without that, it was impossible for us, and without the maturity of the ecosystem, it was impossible for us. So it took both internal maturity in terms of being ready and open, and external maturity from all of our partners.
And you become a beta tester at large scales for fintech solutions.
So it's not beta testing. It was really live and at scale.
Okay, thank you, Arnaud de Bresson. Can you also highlight us the strategy developed by Paris EUROPLACE for the fintech cluster, more precisely finance innovation, and the key sectors of the French fintech?
Yes, thank you very much. First, I would like to underline how the things have evolved in the high-tech sectors in France, we have to say, since the election of Emmanuel Macron. And I really want to stress that what has been done in terms of improvement of the regulatory and fiscal environment for France, the reforms which have been made, and the way the high-tech sectors has been considered since let's say now 3-4 years, has been a really change of face for France and for the fintech sector. More than 10,000 startups, 300 incubators. Everybody knows now the Station F, which is a very big incubator for high-tech companies, more than 1,000 companies, and many fintech are also located in the Station F. And here we have with Marion La Place, which is also a big meeting point for fintech and investors, on which Paris EUROPLACE is contributing. For us, the creation of Pôle Finance Innovation, the financial services cluster in 2008, has been really a big success. More than 1,000 fintech have been accompanied since that date, and the fundraising has been multiplied by 3, like it has been said by Elias Canem, with a big growth in the fundraising for the fintech. The President Macron has fixed an objective for France: 25 unicorns in 3 years of time. We are in the process. We already have 14 unicorns which are identified, new ones, and we have 10 others in the pipeline, among them some fintech. So these companies are developing and growing in size, which is a very big objective and important objective for us. Last but not least, for the Pôle Finance Innovation, 4 priorities. First, to accelerate the fintech development. We have a few sectors of excellence: big data, risk management, sustainable finance, payment systems that the governor has stressed. All are sectors of excellence for the French fintech. Second, to organize the development in the territories, in all the regions of France, and not only here in Paris. And last but not least, accompany this fintech abroad on international fields and meet international investors. This is the role of Paris EUROPLACE. This is the strategy of the Pôle Finance Innovation.
So you're both supporting fintechs in France and helping them to go internationally, to develop abroad. Arnaud, Caudoux, if we talk about the, helping the fintech to go abroad, can we talk about the French delegation you've set up for the Singapore Fintech Festival, I think 2019, and this year again? Is it because Asian markets are so important for fintechs today?
Absolutely. I think first it's part of our strategy and part of what we do to accompany the best French startups in the more interesting places abroad. And clearly accompanying fintechs in Singapore is one of the key points for us in this part of the economy for many reasons. We've been doing so last year, and I can tell you we'll be doing so next year too. And obviously we are doing so this year. Very happy to do so, and always very happy to see that we can find great companies that are really interested in learning about these markets, gaining market shares, finding customers in Singapore and in Southeast Asia. The reason why it's very interesting, I think Singapore has this very specific blend of very good technology, great financial environment, and at the same time a huge potential of development, which is very specific and really very interesting. So you will find a great competition, and we have, I think, really great companies, and the more they are exposed to the best competition, internationally speaking, the better. So being there is a very interesting thing. And last thing is the regulatory environment in Singapore. It's been mentioned a lot, but obviously the MAS is doing a great job. The size of Singapore also allows specific things. It's a very interesting size in terms of trying to experiment things at scale, but not such scale as you would find in France or the US. So there is a lot of things you can do in Singapore. and based from which are very high-end and experimental, and at the same time you can reach out to Indonesia, to Malaysia, etc., which are great markets to conquer with great competition. So really very interesting for all the companies we have taken last year. Most of them have set up offices or have a lot of clients now over there, and very interesting for the ones we accompany this year, which you will discover in a few minutes.
Yeah, so last year's delegation was, there was success stories.
Yeah, definitely. If we want to be specific, ICA, which is doing, let's say, intensive calculation for risk management, now has an office in Singapore. Kaiko, which is specialized in data for crypto assets, has very interesting too, more customers in Singapore and Asia than it has in France, coming from nowhere 1 year ago in terms of customers in Asia. So out of a delegation of 5 companies, 2 are now very operationally active in Asia and in Singapore.
Well, talking about digital assets, the French Central Bank, European Central Bank are talking a lot about central bank digital currency, and also the governor addressed this topic earlier. What do you think about this? Is it time for international cooperation?
Yeah, obviously it is. It's the most freeing issue in the fintech area, I think, is about crypto assets, because it's one of these unique moments when you see that there is a real potential for disruption, a real technological innovation, which is massive, which is really a new framework that can, in the next 10 years, really set up a revolution in the financial system. So at the same time, we need deep technological skills and being very experimental at a small scale. And we need a deep regulatory view because we are playing with the whole financial system. So at the same time, we need startups with very high-end engineers, and we need regulators working about financial schemes. So we need to find this right mix. It's about being international, because a lot of use cases are about international commerce, as was mentioned by the governor of the Banque de France. So we need those 3 elements: startups with very high-end engineering, national regulators, and international collaboration. And this we can find in France for sure, and because we have a strong culture of public-private collaboration. And this we can also find in Singapore, where the MAS has been very active, and we are very happy to see that there is a stronger and stronger collaboration between Banque de France and MAS, with Banque de France now being settled in Singapore, and it's a very promising collaboration on this field specifically. That's why this year we are bringing both Ledger and LGO, which are 2 crypto assets companies, which have a lot to learn and a lot to bring to this environment.
Yeah, so you can learn more about Ledger and some of the amazing fintechs of the French delegation this year in the next session. So don't forget to stay with us and switch on the local channel. But before that, I wanted to ask you more broadly among the fintech ecosystem in close to Bpifrance. Where do you think, in your opinion, France is the strongest? Is it in credit, in data science, in crypto? Can we have your opinion?
Well, you named it. I think these 3 areas we are very strong, because we have very good math skills and engineering skills. So typically, if you look at crypto, it's very important to have this kind of skills, very innovative people. It's also very important in the AI field. So we are also, for instance, bringing Forcia, which is doing AI in the compliance area of the business. So AI is very important and strong for France. So this is one part of the answer. The other part of the answer, which is also very interesting, is that since we have a very strong historic financial ecosystem and very strong banks, it's a very difficult market. So if you manage to emerge in this market and to compete with the incumbent banks in France, specifically, it means you have a very good technology and a very good product focus. So we also have, for instance, very good credit companies or basically B2C companies, because to succeed in this market, it takes very, very good companies and very good skills. So for instance, we have United, which we brought with us last year and which is also coming this year to this virtual Singapore, which is a very good example of a very strong credit company able to compete with the SocGen and BNP of France.
Well, thank you, Arnaud and Arnaud. I think you've done a great teasing for the next session. So please stay with us. So thank you very much, and stay with us if you want to discover more on some of our amazing fintechs in the next session on the Hyperlocal channel.